Black CEO publicly insulted by billionaire heiress, then she crashed her empire overnight. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's video, I need your help. We've noticed that the channel is losing traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can help us. It's quick, free, and allows us to continue bringing you great content. Your support means everything. Let's keep this channel growing collectively. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get back to the story. You don't belong at this table. The words cut through the ballroom like glass on marble, sharp, cold, deliberate. Every fork froze midair. Every whisper died. Charlotte Windsor stood tall in her emerald gown, a crystal flute in one hand, her other finger stabbing the air toward a single woman, seated quietly among the glittering donors. The chandelier light caught the diamond on her wrist, but it was her smile, cruel practice that made the room shift. Across from her sat Ariana Cole. No bodyguards, no publicist, no name tag screaming influence. Just a burnt orange dress, simple gold chain, and the calm eyes of someone who had seen this exact scene before. The gala had been going perfectly, champagne laughter, camera flashes, orchestral charm, until this moment. Now, silence ruled. Charlotte tilted her head. Security must have made a mistake, she said, voice syruped with arrogance. This section is for major donors, not guests of guests. A ripple of uneasy laughter passed through the surrounding tables. Someone coughed. Another lowered his gaze. But Ariana didn't move. She simply placed her napkin down with the same grace she'd used to sign billion-dollar contracts. Her voice was quiet, level. I'm exactly where I was invited to be. Charlotte's smirk widened. Invited by whom? She leaned closer, whispering just loud enough for everyone to hear. Or did you just slip in to see how the other half lives? Laughter broke brittle and hollow. A man in a tuxedo whispered, awkward, while another reached for his phone, already filming. Ariana's gaze didn't waver. She didn't raise her voice or defend herself. She didn't need to. The power in her stillness was louder than every insult in the room. Across the hall, the Windsor Foundation banner glowed on the LED screen, an evening for global change. The irony hung heavy, almost suffocating. Charlotte's father, Richard Windsor, the billionaire patriarch, watched from the head table. He didn't stop his daughter. He didn't blink. He simply smiled. The kind of smile men wear when they think the world belongs to them. Charlotte turned to the crowd again. Let's not make her uncomfortable, she said mock-sweet. Maybe she just wandered in from the staff entrance. A few gasps, a few smirks, and then a single voice, soft, breaking the tension. Miss, would you like me to move her chair? It came from a waiter. He froze the moment Ariana looked up at him, not angry, just steady. No, she said, her tone unshaken. You'll stay. Everyone will. The room shifted again this time, not from power, but from discomfort. Then she added, almost a whisper, but every microphone in the hall caught it. Because some lessons can't be taught in private. A murmur swept the gala. Charlotte blinked, unsure if she'd been challenged or dismissed. Ariana reached for her glass, the faintest tremor of crystal ringing in the air. Before we continue, the narrator's voice slides in calm, cinematic, deliberate. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if you believe in dignity and justice, hit like and subscribe. These stories spark change, and we're glad you're here. Now, back to Ariana. Charlotte stepped closer, her perfume filling the space between them. Do you even know who I am? Ariana's lips curved, just barely. Not yet, she said, but you will. And as the orchestra resumed uneasy, trembling, the night's first fracture had been drawn. No one knew it yet, but by morning, $3 billion would vanish, and the name Windsor would never sound the same again. The orchestra tried to recover what the moment had broken. Strings rose, glasses clinked again, but the air hadn't moved on. Eyes still tracked Ariana Cole, the woman who hadn't raised her voice, the one who'd made the entire gala feel like it was on trial. She sat back down, posture straight, gaze steady, as if reclaiming the room inch by inch just by breathing in it. The waiter quietly refilled her glass, careful not to make a sound. Across the hall, the screens cycled through logos of corporate sponsors, global brands, foundations, old family names, and buried among them, one no one noticed before tonight, Cole Global Capital. It was hers, every dollar of it. But that wasn't something she needed to announce. Not yet. 2 tables away, Richard Windsor whispered something to his aide. Phones lit up. Text flew. He didn't like surprises, especially ones that didn't come with a price tag. And this woman sitting calmly in the center of his ballroom was the definition of one. Ariana took a small breath. The kind of inhale you take before saying something that can change the tone of an entire evening. But she didn't speak. She let Charlotte keep performing. Charlotte, still flushed from her outburst, laughed too loud at a joke that wasn't funny. Her fiancé shifted beside her, embarrassed. Cameras caught every angle, a perfect image of wealth without grace. Ariana's mind wandered for just a second to a time before the tailored suits, before the Forbes covers. She was 23, fresh out of grad school, walking into a bank with her first investment pitch. The manager hadn't even looked at her deck. "We don't fund small dreams," he'd said. She remembered walking out, cheeks burning not from shame, but from the promise she'd made to herself that day. One day, they'll call me for permission to dream. Now, 2 decades later, she was sitting in a ballroom, built on other people's inherited arrogance, and they were still trying to decide if she belonged. Her phone buzzed softly on the table. Elena, executive director. "Ma'am, liquidity review complete. Windsor Capital is overexposed 31% in unsecured equities. Your move?" Ariana locked the screen. No one needed to see that. Not yet. She reached for her clutch, pulled out a donation card, small, embossed, elegant, and began to write something on it. The motion drew the eyes of the man across from her, a senator who'd spent the night pretending not to watch. "Excuse me," he said quietly, leaning closer. "I'm sorry for what just happened." Ariana smiled, soft and controlled. "Don't be. Moments like this reveal where the real wealth is and where it isn't." He nodded slowly, unsure how to reply. At the head table, Richard Windsor stood, microphone in hand. "Ladies and gentlemen, a toast to the future and to those who keep the economy strong." His gaze lingered on Ariana, sharp, assessing. She met it calm, unblinking. In that single exchange, something shifted. He realized she wasn't there by mistake. She was there on purpose. The music swelled again. Ariana folded the donation card neatly and handed it to the event host passing by. "For the Children's Fund," she said. The host's eyes widened. The figure, written down, made him stammer. "Are you?" "Sure, ma'am." "Completely." The number was 7 digits long. Silence spread again, but this time it wasn't about doubt, it was awe. Charlotte froze mid-laugh. Richard's smile cracked. The cameras swung back. For the first time that night, Ariana Cole wasn't invisible. She was the storm quietly moving under the chandeliers, waiting for the right second to strike. And when she finally did, the Windsor name would never shine the same way again. The string quartet had barely finished their piece when Charlotte's voice rose again, sharper this time, laced with humiliation, pretending to be confidence. "You see," she said, turning to the table beside her. "Money doesn't buy manners." Laughter followed, but weaker than before. The crowd could feel the imbalance. Something in the air had shifted. Still, arrogance is loud when it feels threatened. Ariana didn't flinch. She adjusted her napkin, lifted her glass, and nodded politely to the violinist, still tuning his strings. That small gesture, simple, effortless, made Charlotte's fury burn hotter. "You think you can just sit here?" Charlotte hissed, stepping closer. "Pretend you belong and everyone's supposed to ignore it?" No one answered. Not her father, not the guests. Even the waitstaff froze mid-step. A man at the far end whispered, "She's going too far." Charlotte ignored him. She wanted a scene, something viral, something to prove she still controlled the room. She waved toward the back. "Security," she called out, loud enough for the microphone to catch it. "Please escort this woman to the lobby." The violin screeched, a string snapped mid-tension, and the sound sliced the moment in half. 2 guards approached from the rear doors, black suits blending into the dim gold light. The chatter fell to nothing but the tap of their shoes against marble. Ariana stayed seated, calm, unmoved. "May I ask on what grounds?" Charlotte's smirk returned. "Trespassing on reputation," she said sweetly. "You've mistaken access for acceptance." It was meant to sting. It only revealed fear. The guards hesitated, not because they doubted orders, but because something about this woman didn't fit the script. The entire ballroom was watching. Cameras, phones, lenses everywhere. One of them, the younger, stepped forward. "Ma'am, could we speak privately?" "No," Ariana said softly. If disrespect happens in public, correction does too. Gasps. Phones raise higher. Charlotte folded her arms. Triumphant. You're making this worse for yourself. Ariana's lips curved into something between patience and prophecy. No, she said. I'm giving you the stage you've been begging for. Behind her, the large LED screen flickered, switching slides for the upcoming auction segment. For a fraction of a second, a logo flashed. Cole Global Capital. Then another line appeared below it. Presenting sponsor of the Windsor Foundation Gala. The crowd murmured. Charlotte turned, confused. Her father's face drained of color. Ariana looked up at the nearest guard. Before you touch me, check your event memo. Whose account pays your security firm tonight? The older guard blinked, pulled his phone, and typed something. The pause stretched. The whisper started moving through the tables like a slow fire. She's the sponsor. No, the investor. Wait, her name's on the board? Richard Windsor rose halfway from his chair, voice thin but controlled. This isn't the place for... Ariana met his eyes. Exactly. Yet here we are. Charlotte's cheeks flushed crimson. She stammered. You think this means anything? Daddy owns half this city. Ariana placed her glass down gently, the chime echoing like punctuation. Then I own the half that funds it. The sentence hung there quiet, absolute. Even the chandeliers seemed to dim. Charlotte looked around, desperate for backup, but the crowd's loyalty had already shifted. The staff stood still. The donors avoided her eyes. Even the orchestra hesitated before the next note. Ariana stood at last. Slow, poised. You called for security, she said, turning toward the guards. Keep them here. This room is about to witness accountability. And as the whispers built into a tremor, the heiress realized she hadn't summoned power. She'd summoned proof of who really held it. The ballroom had gone still, the kind of silence that hums under chandeliers before something irreversible happens. Charlotte stood frozen beside her father, her confidence cracking in slow motion. The guards hadn't moved. They were waiting for permission, for direction, for clarity. And in the middle of it all, Ariana Cole stood perfectly still. Her calm wasn't passive. It was the kind that holds the room hostage without raising a hand. She reached for her phone, sliding her thumb across the glass. A faint chime, then the click of connection. Elena, she said softly, it's time. Activate review protocol. Her voice didn't carry volume, but it carried authority, the kind that rewrites hierarchy in real time. From the back of the room, one of the stage technicians looked up. His earpiece flickered, his monitor blinked. The gala's display screens, synchronized with the event's corporate feed, suddenly shifted. The Windsor Foundation logo dimmed for a breath. Then a new banner appeared, white on black. Cole Global Capital, strategic partner, audit in progress. A ripple of unease rolled through the guests. Phones buzzed. Whispered questions collided like static. Charlotte turned sharply to her father. What is this? Richard Windsor tried to smile, the politician's smile of a man who's lost control but refuses to admit it. Some kind of technical error, he muttered, waving toward the stage. Fix that, now. Ariana's eyes stayed on him. Calm, patient, dangerous. It's not an error, it's oversight. Elena's voice came through Ariana's earpiece. Crisp, professional. Confirmation complete, ma'am. Windsor Capital's short-term credit exposure exceeds regulatory limits. Shall we proceed with the public filing? Ariana's answer was almost a whisper. Yes, timestamp it to tonight's gala. The room hadn't heard the words, but they felt the shift, that quiet rearranging of power you only notice after the fact. Charlotte laughed nervously. You're bluffing. This is some kind of stunt? Ariana turned to her, gaze steady. I don't bluff with balance sheets. Richard's phone vibrated. He checked the screen, a string of urgent messages. Liquidity review flagged. Media inquiries incoming. Needs statement within the hour. His throat tightened. He looked back up at Ariana. You can't do this here. You did this here, she replied evenly. All I did was turn the lights on. Across the hall, the young waiter Eli stood near the champagne bar, still holding a tray. His hand trembled slightly, but his eyes were locked on Ariana. He didn't know what protocol meant. He just knew the woman being insulted an hour ago now had the richest man in the room speechless. Ma'am, he whispered under his breath. Whatever you're doing, keep doing it. Ariana heard him. She didn't turn, but the faintest smile tugged at the corner of her mouth. She spoke into her phone again. Quieter now. for herself more than anyone else. Elena, initiate containment. No press access until I say so. Let them wonder. Confirmed, Elena replied. Charlotte exhaled sharply, eyes wild. You think you can humiliate us? Ariana set her phone down, straightened her shoulders. No, she said calmly. I think you already did that yourselves. And then, for the first time, the orchestra began to play again, not by instruction, but by instinct. A slow, uneasy melody that felt more like a requiem than a waltz. Every note seemed to underline a truth no one could unhear. The woman they'd tried to remove from the room now owned the floor, the screen, and the silence that followed. Before the next song ended, half the donors were already checking their stocks. By midnight, the world would know why. The strings faded into silence again, leaving only the low murmur of panic disguised as conversation. The ballroom's glow had turned cold, like the light itself no longer wanted to be part of this evening. At the far end of the table, the young waiter Eli stood frozen beside a silver bucket of champagne. He could feel his heart drumming in his chest. This wasn't just another service shift. This was history tightening its grip. He looked at Ariana. She wasn't speaking, wasn't gesturing, just existing with an ease that felt like defiance. Every second she stayed silent, she said more than Charlotte ever could. Charlotte, meanwhile, was unraveling. Her voice, once sharp and controlled, now cracked with each syllable. Turn that screen off, do you hear me? This is our event. The technician near the stage shook his head, pale. It's not me, ma'am. It's a live update internal feed from the sponsor's server. That word sponsor echoed like thunder. Guests began whispering, phones lighting their faces blue. Who's she? Did she just say audit? Wait, she funds this place? A woman in a pearl necklace, sitting 2 tables away, leaned toward her husband. She's the Cole from Cole Global. I saw her on the cover of Forbes last year. Her husband blinked. Then why's she sitting back here? Because she doesn't need the front row, she whispered. She owns it. Eli swallowed hard and finally set the tray down. He couldn't stand by anymore. He stepped forward, voice shaky but clear. Miss Cole, I saw what happened earlier. Charlotte turned, eyes narrowing. Stay out of this. Your staff. Eli didn't back down. Yes, ma'am. Staff who watched you insult the person paying tonight's bills. A hush rippled through the room. Someone clapped once, just once from the back. A nervous kind of applause that quickly multiplied. The energy flipped. The journalist who'd been quietly recording since the first insult raised her camera higher. You have a statement, Miss Cole? Ariana looked up. Slow. Measured. Not a statement, she said. A reminder. She stood, hands clasped loosely before her. Her voice didn't rise, but every microphone in the room caught it. Every person in this room was invited to celebrate generosity. But what you've witnessed tonight is something rarer: accountability. It doesn't come with champagne, it comes with consequence. The applause grew louder, hesitant at first, then solid, then unstoppable. Eli stepped back, eyes wide. He hadn't meant to start anything. But he had. Charlotte's face flushed red. You're turning this into a spectacle. Ariana turned her gaze to her. Is rain the grade whiter too? Is it class? The night had changed. The crowd had chosen a side. What began as humiliation was now testimony, the kind people remember not because it shouted, but because it shook something sacred. Somewhere near the back, Richard Windsor's phone rang again. He didn't answer. He already knew what it meant. Before dawn, the world would too. Charlotte's laugh cracked the air, high, sharp, unsteady. It didn't sound like power anymore. It sounded like panic. All of you stop filming, this is a private event. But no one stopped. Dozens of screens glowed across the ballroom, like fireflies gathering around a flame. Her father rose, tugging his cufflinks, jaw tight. That's enough, Richard said, his voice deep, rehearsed the tone of a man used to ending conversations. Turn those off, please. You're embarrassing yourselves. The crowd hesitated, but only for a moment. They'd already tasted something too rare to let go truth. Charlotte turned on Ariana again, trembling with rage. You think this is some kind of victory? You walk in here, hijack my family's event? Ariana met her stare. Calm. Centered. I didn't hijack anything, Charlotte. I funded it. Gasps rippled like thunder under the chandeliers. Richard's composure fractured for the first time. Miss Cole, he said, voice lower now. Whatever this is, we can settle it privately. Privately? she echoed. No. The humiliation was public, the truth will be too. She didn't raise her tone. She didn't need to. Every word was carved clean, deliberate, final. Charlotte's eyes darted around the room, searching for allies. No one met her gaze. The violinist looked down. The senator pretended to check his phone. Even the guards stood still, waiting not for orders, but for the inevitable. Dad, Charlotte whispered. Say something. But Richard was already reading his phone, the breaking alert glowing on the screen. Cole Global initiates audit of Windsor Capital $3B at risk. His face turned ashen. He looked up at Ariana, voice hoarse. What have you done? Ariana tilted her head, almost compassionate. Nothing you didn't do to yourself. I just stopped covering it. The room erupted in murmurs. Someone clapped again, soft, respectful, like punctuation. Charlotte lunged forward a step, furious. You can't destroy us. I didn't, Ariana said quietly. I exposed what was already collapsing. Her phone buzzed again. She didn't look at it. She didn't need to. Elena would handle it. The dominoes were already falling. The music died completely now, no orchestra, no hum, just the heavy sound of realization filling the air. Ariana turned toward the nearest table, her expression unreadable. For years, people like you decided who belonged in rooms like this. Tonight, that ends. And she walked back to her seat, slow, unhurried, every step a verdict. By the time she sat down, half the audience was on their feet. Not applauding, not yet, just watching, like witnesses waiting for justice to take its final form. The ballroom had turned into a stage no one planned for. Cameras flashed, whispers swelled, and the scent of panic hung in the air like perfume gone sour. Charlotte stood there, trembling not from fear, but from disbelief that a woman she dismissed an hour ago now held the entire night in her palm. Richard Windsor tried to salvage control. He stepped toward the microphone, forcing a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Let's take a brief intermission, he said, voice brittle. Just a misunderstanding. Ariana rose before he could finish. You're right, she said softly. It was a misunderstanding. You mistook silence for weakness. The crowd froze. The journalist at the back whispered, Got it, as her camera light turned red. Charlotte's jaw tightened. You can't talk to my father like that. Ariana looked at her, calm as moonlight. Then maybe he should have taught you how to listen. The air cracked. A single gasp broke, followed by a wave of murmurs spreading like wildfire through the tables. Behind Richard, one of his advisors rushed in from the lobby, whispering urgently into his ear. Richard's smile faltered. His hands shook slightly as he read the phone shoved into his palm. The headline blazed across the screen. Cole Global Audit Triggers Stock Freeze Windsor Capital Under Review. The blood drained from his face. Charlotte noticed, panic rising. Dad, what does that mean? He didn't answer. He just stared at Ariana, the realization dawning too late. She wasn't bluffing. The empire he'd built and the arrogance he'd handed down was already unraveling in real time. The journalist spoke into her mic. Breaking now from inside the Windsor Gala, the event's lead sponsor, Cole Global Capital, has initiated an internal audit that could impact billions. Phones everywhere buzzed. Guests looked around, unsure whether to stay or leave. The illusion of safety of control had shattered. Ariana didn't move. She simply reached for her clutch, opened it, and pulled out a folded note, the donation card from earlier. She handed it to Eli, the waiter who'd spoken up. Make sure this still goes to the Children's Fund, she said. They deserve something honest tonight. It is that a light brown. The Ramans, with that, thought a world. Her tone was gentle, almost kind, but it landed like judgment. Charlotte's voice broke. You ruined everything. Ariana turned back, her expression unreadable. No, I reminded everyone that not everything you own was ever really yours. And with that, she stepped away from the table. The cameras followed. The heiress didn't. By the time Ariana reached the exit, the news alerts had multiplied a cascade of headlines glowing across the room like confessions written in light. The collapse had already begun. The corridor outside the ballroom was lined with mirrors, tall, cold, reflecting fragments of a night that had just changed shape. Ariana walked slowly, her heels soft against the marble. Every reflection seemed to move a second behind her, like time itself was trying to keep up. Her phone buzzed once. She didn't hesitate. She answered. Elena, she said, voice steady. Proceed. Ide du in manner. On the other end, Elena's tone was calm but electric. Authorization confirmed. All Windsor Capital accounts entering freeze protocol. Legals on standby. Press embargo active for 30 minutes. Good, Ariana replied. Let it breathe long enough for them to feel it. She stopped by a tall glass window overlooking the city. Below, the skyline glittered towers built on borrowed confidence. Her reflection stared back, equal parts grace and exhaustion. Do you want to initiate public statement? Elena asked. No, not yet. Let the facts speak first. Inside the ballroom, the noise had turned frantic. Phones ringing, voices raised, reporters sprinting to the doors. Richard Windsor's name echoed in panic through half a dozen calls that would all end the same way with silence. Ariana glanced back through the glass wall. She could still see Charlotte near the head table, pacing, clutching her phone as if it could stop the collapse. She's making calls, Elena said through the earpiece. Let her, Ariana murmured. Desperation's its own PR. For a moment she remembered her first boardroom fluorescent lights, 2 bright suits, a dozen men who spoke over her like she was an intern. She'd promised herself then that if she ever had power, she'd never raise it in anger. She'd let results do the talking. Now, results were screaming. Her phone pinged again, a secure notification. Windsor Capital access revoked. Board notified. Media leak verified. Ariana exhaled. Slow. Controlled. Elena, she said quietly, lock the system. No reversals without my signature. Done. She turned away from the window, her expression unreadable. Behind her, the city lights flickered against the glass like applause from another world. Down the hall, Eli appeared, still in his uniform, eyes wide. Miss Cole, they're saying the news hit Wall Street. Ariana nodded once. Then they'll finally understand what respect costs. The young man hesitated. Are you okay? Ariana gave a faint smile, not triumph, not relief, just truth. Justice isn't supposed to feel easy. It's supposed to feel right. She walked past him toward the elevator. The doors slid open with a hush. Behind her, the sound of chaos grew smaller, fading into distance, replaced by the quiet hum of victory earned, not shouted. As the elevator doors closed, she whispered almost to herself, lesson delivered. A was watered, and somewhere above, in the ballroom still glittering with borrowed light, the Windsor dynasty finally learned what silence sounds like when it belongs to power. The press room was chaos dressed in tuxedos. Reporters flooded in from the ballroom, cameras flashing like lightning caught indoors. Voices overlapped questions, rumors, disbelief, all orbiting one name now trending worldwide. Ariana Cole. She entered quietly. No entourage, no security detail, no dramatics. Just presence, and silence that worked harder than any press statement. The Windsor Foundation backdrop still hung across the wall behind the podium, its logo half faded from the technical disruption earlier. Ariana stepped toward it, heels soft, eyes level, every lens turned. Miss Cole, a reporter shouted, is it true you initiated the audit during the gala? She paused, letting the noise die before answering. The audit was initiated the moment someone decided accountability didn't apply to them, she said. Tonight was just when everyone finally noticed. Flashes erupted. Another reporter pushed forward. Were you planning to expose the Windsors publicly? A small smile touched her lips. I wasn't planning to expose anyone. I planned to tell the truth whether the room was ready or not. Her tone was calm, every word delivered like a measured step. She didn't speak to the cameras, she spoke through them. Behind the press crowd, Charlotte Windsor appeared, pale and furious, flanked by her father. This isn't over, Richard muttered. Too low for the mics, but she heard him anyway. It is, Ariana replied. You just haven't accepted it yet. Charlotte snapped. You humiliated my family. Ariana turned, her voice soft but sharp enough to cut through the noise. Your family built humiliation into a system. I simply stopped pretending it was invisible. The room went silent again, the kind of silence that doesn't need applause to feel full. She placed both hands on the podium, steady, deliberate. For the record, she continued, Cole Global Capital holds majority investment in Windsor Industries, including this foundation's operating fund. Effective immediately, that fund will be redirected to independent oversight and the children's programs it was meant for. Gasps filled the room. Cameras clicked like thunder. Ariana looked directly at one of them. We all like to talk about philanthropy until it demands honesty. So let tonight be honest. Her phone vibrated once a message from Elena. Transfer complete. Funds secured. She looked back at Charlotte, then Richard. No one here lost $3 billion tonight, she said. You just discovered who it really belonged to. A murmur rippled through the pressed disbelief mixing with admiration. Ariana stepped away from the podium, her final words soft enough to force the room to lean in. Power doesn't shout, she said. It just stops asking permission. And as she walked out, the flashes followed her, not as a storm this time, but as a procession. Behind her, the Windsor logo flickered once more, then disappeared from the screen entirely. By morning, the city woke to headlines that didn't need exaggeration. Coal Global reclaims $3B from Windsor Capital. The gala that turned into a reckoning. Clips from the night flooded every feed, Charlotte shouting, Richard paling, and Ariana standing calm in the storm. The internet called her the silent power. At the Windsor penthouse, panic replaced prestige. Calls went unanswered. Partners withdrew. The stock ticker bled red. Charlotte scrolled through thousands of comments, her name trending under number the Harris fall. Every insult she had thrown now echoed back in captions. Meanwhile, Ariana was nowhere to be seen. No interviews, no press statements, no celebrations. She sat in her downtown office, blinds open to the dawn, a single cup of black coffee cooling beside her. On her screen, reports flowed in confirmation of transfers, resignations, apologies. She read none of them fully. Elena entered quietly. The world's calling you a hero, she said. Ariana smiled faintly. They'll forget tomorrow, but the lesson will stay. She looked out at the skyline, calm, endless, hers. Justice doesn't trend, she murmured. It endures. And with that, she closed the laptop. The world outside was still spinning, louder than ever. But inside that room, silence reigned steady, earned and absolute. By noon, the boardroom of Windsor Capital felt more like a courtroom. 12 directors sat around the long glass table, none daring to speak. The screens behind them displayed a single line, emergency session, called by majority shareholder A. Cole. Then the door opened. Ariana entered, no entourage, no theatrics, just quiet authority wrapped in a tailored black suit. The room stood instinctively, unsure why. She placed a folder on the table. Gentlemen, ladies, she began, voice calm but final. This company will not collapse. It will correct. Richard Windsor sat at the far end, eyes hollow. You think you can erase decades of work? He rasped. Ariana met his gaze evenly. I don't erase what I buy, Mr. Windsor. I rebuild it. She opened the folder, a stack of signed orders. Effective immediately, the current executive board is dissolved. All pending investigations will proceed under federal compliance. No shouting followed. No protest. Just the sound of papers sliding across polished glass. You'll regret this, Richard muttered. Ariana closed the folder, her tone colder than steel. Regret is for those who never learned accountability. She turned toward the window, sunlight breaking through gray clouds, reflecting off the city below. This isn't revenge, she said softly. It's repair. And as she left the room, the remaining directors exhaled, not in relief but in respect. The reign of silence had spoken, and it had the last word. Night returned to the city, quiet, polished, pretending nothing had burned beneath its lights. From the rooftop terrace of her office, Ariana Cole watched it all. The skyline glittered like applause she didn't need. Elena joined her, hesitant. It's done, she said softly. They've stepped down. Ariana nodded, eyes still on the horizon. Power isn't what you take, she said. It's what you can walk away from. The wind caught her hair, the city humming below, same streets, same skyline, but a different order now. You could have ruined them completely, Elena whispered. Ariana smiled faintly. I didn't need to. Truth already did. She turned, heading back inside, her heels fading into silence. And as the camera lingered on the empty skyline, her voice echoed one last time, steady, unshaken, resolute. I don't film justice. I am the result of it. Fade out. Black screen. And the end.